Good to see you. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. It's great to be back with you again.
Is that a hard left?
That's a hard left. And I'll just, we have other things to discuss, but I'm just going to say this. Like, my mom is here in the studio. We've talked about how she's a big fan. Yeah. But I'm going to quote my dad as a transition from that last guest. My dad, locksmith, brilliant man, but only had a 6th grade education. So he'd often, express things in a rough way. Yeah. And he once said, listening to a black conservative on the television, he said, "Son, you'll never go broke telling white folks what they want to hear."
Yeah, there you go. You will never go broke. It's funny you should say that. I was in a conversation the other day about my own financial fortunes or lack thereof. And some friends of mine and I were laughing, like, say, Tavis, you'd be so much wealthier if for the last 30 plus years of your career, you had taken all the skill set that God has blessed you with and advanced that message. Yeah. Oh my God.
If you had just done a soft shoe instead, but I will say this: he did give me something to work with, because on the way out he said something that's true, and you pressed him on it, which is the reality is that people are getting tired of that song and dance, even inside that conservative echo chamber. That's right. People are seeing through this fraudulent, orange fascist. People are tired of it, and we're at this point now where this is a hard turn to the left. You're talking to somebody that's like actually steeped in the black liberation tradition. I'm not going to give you that soft shoe, but it's a moment where people are ready to hear it, because the frustration on the right with this insanity, and the frustration amongst liberals with the lack of performance from the Democrats. Like, both of these parties are at record low approval rates right now. And it just shows that there's like a real crisis in the political status quo. So there's definitely an opportunity for somebody that's coming from outside the system to make a difference and an impact in this moment.
I see the opportunity, and while I'm not naive, Gavin Newsom's on his way out. He right now is rapidly, wildly popular with the Democrats in this state. I saw some poll numbers the other day. He's popular across the country. As I said before, I don't think he has a chance of winning or being competitive in any red states because of his agenda, if he decides to run, including he wants to run for president. But we're in a moment right now where Democrats in California seem to be happy with the way he is leading the Democratic Party. Here you come as a Green candidate. How do you tap into that? Or how do you frame your argument in that kind of environment? Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, what I've seen is that people nationwide have been responsive, at least those that are kind of steeped in the Democrat politics, with the fact that Gavin will appear to fight back in public. But if you actually have conversations with folks inside the state of California about how the state of California has been run, there is massive disillusionment with the way that the Democrat regime has governed the state itself. So Gavin keeps getting points for performative politics and fighting back against Trump. When his social media manager came on with certain kind of clapbacks, when he does performance like, come pick a fight with me instead of picking, and that kind of optics and theatrics gets attention, but he's running for office on a national stage. And it was similar with the Prop 50 vote. Prop 50 was literally the Democrats spending $300 million of the state's taxpayer dollars and then running tens of millions of dollars of advertisement in order to get something through that was just part of Gavin Newsom's presidential campaign, because that redistricting doesn't affect anything for people inside the state of California. He's using the state of California as a pawn on his chessboard in a national fight between Republicans and Democrats and as part of his aspirations. So inside the state, and I've been up and down the state from San Diego to Humboldt, there's massive disaffection with the way that the Democrats have actually run the state. So there's a gray lane. And then the last thing I'll just say about this is that I think that people have a lot of misconceptions that come from the way that this conversation is constructed in the media. To this day, 40% of American voters identify themselves as independents. Only 30% identify as Democrat, 25% identify as Republican. And when you poll even registered Democrats, 53% of them say both parties do such a, quote, poor job that we need an independent third party. That's 48% of Republicans saying the same thing, and 70% of independents say that. So the reality is that the talking points in the corporate controlled media are going to be about blue versus red. But on the ground, people are fed up with Team Blue genocide and Team Red fascism because they both work for the same corporations, and people really want new options in politics. That's why Zoran, for example, was so successful in his campaign in New York.
Two things. Yes, your commentary notwithstanding, and yet, an independent party in this country has still not been able to get off the ground with any in a robust sort of way.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
We're competing uphill against people that are swimming in blood money. I mean, these are, you got to understand, like Kamala was able to spend $1.5 billion, whereas, we were being outspent, 1,000 to 1. So they control, most of the media outlets and are able to shape the conversations in significant ways. But I will say this, like people forget that a Green Party candidate almost ended Gavin Newsom's career before it started. Matt Gonzalez got 47% of the vote for mayor in San Francisco, despite the fact that he was outspent 30 to 1. And right now, so we just had polling come out that shows that I'm running even with a bunch of the establishment Democrat candidates, Betty Yee, Tony Thurmond, all those folks, and ahead of some of the other Democrat candidates, despite the fact that we're being massively outspent, because we're doing the work on the ground and we're responding to this moment by not doing like a fake culture war between, so-called left and so-called right, and instead focusing on, universal single-payer health care, affordable housing, taxing the billionaires and taking the pressure off of working class families in the state. And everywhere I go up and down this state, people are responding to that message. And now you're starting to see it reflected in the polls as well.
When you said earlier that Prop 50 does nothing for the people here in California, how do you respond to those who say, not so fast, Butch? If it does anything to hold the line on Republican redistricting efforts, if it does anything to hold the line on going deeper down the rabbit hole when it comes to gerrymandering, then we are citizens of this country, even though we live in the state of California, so that we would in fact benefit from that.
Fred Hampton said it best. He said, "We don't believe you fight fire with fire best. We believe you fight fire with water best. You do not fight disenfranchisement with disenfranchisement. You fight it with ranked choice voting, multi-member district, and proportional representation." And the Democrats have fought those things tooth and nail the same way that the Republicans have, because their goal is not actually to restore democracy to the people. Their goal is to consolidate their own power. So for me, and they don't want things that make the process more open, because as soon as you take proportional representation, then winner takes all is out of the equation, and they can no longer do the lesser of two evils argument. They can no longer be a corporate party that is just a little to the left of the Republicans and then say, oh, well, you can't vote for those guys, because now you can actually, vote your conscience and make sound choices. So for me, it's just more of the same from Team Blue. And I'll say that this way also, like for me, independent of that, for me, they both have the same corporate donor base. I'm not rooting for either side in that group. I'm rooting for the people.
So Jamie Raskin, Democrat of Maryland, was on this program just a week or so ago. And believe it or not, Butch and Jamie are on the same page in this regard on ranked choice voting. I want to talk about that when we come forward, because I asked Jamie specifically, and I want to ask Butch the same question and give him a chance to just drill down a little more on this. My read of ranked choice voting in the way that it has been employed in this country in certain spaces is that it does open the door and give great opportunity for people of color, and for those who aren't steeped in that corporate money that you raised a moment ago. So we're talking about ranked choice voting, and why that may be the answer to the prayer into the future to save this democracy. You're listening to the Green Party candidate for governor in California, professor at UC Santa Barbara, Butch Ware, on Tavis, Smiley.